There comes a moment in every journey when the people we thought would stay don't, when the ones we trusted to walk with us suddenly disappear, and we're left staring at the emptiness they left behind. At first, it feels like abandonment, like something precious has been torn away, but in that silence, in that still and aching space, something begins to stir, something greater than what we lost, because sometimes it takes a human exit to make room for a divine entrance. When they left, it hurt, but when God entered, everything began to shift, not always loudly, not always instantly, but deeply, and what felt like the end was really the beginning of a transformation no human presence could ever provide. Abandonment reveals the illusion of human control. There's something about being left behind that shakes the soul. When the people we once trusted walk away, whether silently or suddenly, it feels like the ground beneath us has shifted. We search for reasons, we replay conversations, we try to find out what we could have said differently, what we should have seen coming, and in that spiral we come face to face with a hard truth. We never had the control we thought we did. We live much of our lives convinced that our relationships are stable because we work hard to keep them that way. We believe that if we love deeply, give generously, stay loyal, and speak kindly, others will mirror our efforts. But reality has a different rhythm. People are not bound by our love. They are guided by their own choices, their own unresolved battles, their own timing, and when they decide to leave, even after all we've poured into them, we are left staring at the limits of our influence. This is not bitterness. This is clarity, the kind of clarity that comes not from comfort, but from collapse. You realize that no matter how much love you offer, you cannot control how it is received. No matter how consistent your presence, you cannot guarantee someone will value it. The truth is unsettling at first. It feels unfair, even cruel, but hidden within it is something liberating, a new understanding of what you were never meant to carry. Because if your peace depends on someone else staying, then your peace was never secure to begin with. When someone walks away from your life, whether by betrayal, distance, or quiet detachment, what they leave behind is more than just emptiness. They leave behind an invitation. It is in those quiet, hollow, doubt spaces that you begin to see what truly holds you together. Their absence becomes a mirror, reflecting just how much you had relied on human presence for your sense of identity, purpose, and stability. You thought you were standing on solid ground, but you were standing on shifting sand. And now, with their footsteps fading into the distance, all that's left is what's real, what was always there, but hidden beneath the noise of approval and attention. There is pain, yes, but there is also revelation. Sometimes the only way to realize how fragile your grip on life is to lose it. The only way to see the illusion is to watch it fall apart. We think abandonment is the end of the story, but it's actually the beginning of a deeper chapter. One where you learn to stand without leaning. One where you discover that what truly sustains you is not external, not found in them, but internal and eternal. This doesn't mean relationships don't matter. It doesn't mean you stop loving, stop trusting, or stop caring. But it means you stop building your house on someone else's foundation. You stop tying your worth to someone else's ability to stay. Because if a person's absence can destroy your peace, then they had too much power over your life to begin with. Sometimes it takes being left to realize that you were never supposed to depend so heavily on people in the first place. That doesn't make you weak, it makes you human, but it also opens the door to something deeper. The realization that your value, your stability, and your peace can't come from shifting human affection. They must come from something unshakable, and that's where the divine begins to enter, But more on that in the next chapter. The collapse becomes the invitation for the divine. There comes a point in suffering when silence becomes louder than noise. After they leave, after the doors close, after the final message is sent and no reply ever comes, you find yourself in a kind of quiet that feels almost unnatural. The world keeps moving, but your world feels paused, not broken entirely, but suspended. In that stillness, something begins to shift, though not in the way you might expect. At first, the pain feels unbearable. You're not only grieving a person, you're grieving the vision you had of your future with them. You're letting go of plans, hopes, and shared memories that now seem to belong to someone else. Everything inside you wants to rewind time, to fix what was, to fill the aching void they left behind. But no matter how tightly you hold on, the past doesn't return. It slowly fades, not out of cruelty, but to make room for something else. What if the collapse wasn't punishment, but preparation? You see, we often don't seek the divine until we've run out of other options. As long as people are holding us up, as long as circumstances are flowing in our favor, we rarely ask the deeper questions. But when life empties out, when our strength fails, when our plans unravel, we finally begin to ask what truly matters. We start looking not for a temporary fix, but for a foundation, not for a replacement, but for restoration. The collapse becomes a kind of doorway. It humbles you. It breaks down pride and self-reliance, not to shame you, but to clear the space for something stronger than your own ability. This is often how the divine enters, not through celebration, but through surrender. It's in your tears that you begin to see more clearly. It's in your loneliness that you become aware of a presence you had once ignored. God doesn't force his way into a heart that is full of distractions. He enters quietly, gently, often when you are most vulnerable, and in that vulnerability, something sacred begins to take root. You stop performing. You stop pretending. You get honest, painfully honest, not just about what they did, but about what you've been carrying for too long, about the parts of yourself you hid to keep others comfortable, about the ways you ignored your own needs for the sake of keeping someone else from leaving. And in that rawness you find an unexpected strength, not the kind that stands tall and proud, but the kind that knows how to kneel and still rise. When people leave, they often take pieces of us with them. But God doesn't just return what was lost, he restores what was broken. And he does it in a way no one else can. Not with quick fixes or shallow promises, but with deep, patient healing. You begin to hear truth again, not through loud voices or external validation, but in the stillness of your own soul. You start to realize that your value wasn't reduced when they walked away. You were not abandoned by life. You were being invited into a different kind of connection, one that doesn't shift with opinions or fade with time. This is where real transformation begins. Not when you get them back, but when you find yourself again, the version of you that doesn't beg to be loved, but stands secure in the love that was never meant to leave. Sometimes the collapse is not the enemy. Sometimes it is the only way to clear the ground so something sacred can be built. And in that sacred space, God enters not to fill the role of those who left, but to become the center that never shifts. Pain pushes you toward the source of all strength. There is a strange paradox about pain. No one invites it, yet it finds its way into every life. We try to avoid it, delay it, deny it, but sooner or later, it knocks on the door we hoped would never open. And when it enters, it doesn't just inconvenience us, it rearranges us. It asks questions we've avoided. It exposes what we've been leaning on and whether it can truly hold us up. Pain has a way of stripping away the illusion of control. You can't fake your way through deep sorrow. You can't distract your soul from a wound that reaches that deep. All the usual comforts begin to lose their power, the temporary escapes, the shallow affirmations, the external validations. They just don't reach far enough. And so, in the silence after the collapse, you are left searching for a source of strength that does not run out. At first, it feels like weakness. You cry more than you expected. You feel lost longer than you thought you would. You start questioning things you were once certain of. But if you stay in that space long enough without running from it, you start to notice something else. Something unexpected. You begin to realize that pain isn't just trying to crush you, it's trying to guide you. It's pointing you to something beyond your own ability to cope, beyond your own knowledge, your own willpower, even your own understanding. That ache in your chest isn't just the absence of a person, it's the invitation to something eternal. And for the first time in a long time, you're open enough, empty enough, honest enough to receive it. Strength, real strength, is not built in moments of applause. It's formed in silence. It's formed when you're on the ground and you have no idea how you're going to get back up. It's formed when you surrender your pride and stop pretending to be okay. It's formed when you admit you can't do it all and something higher steps in, not to shame you, but to lift you. Pain becomes the bridge. It becomes the path from human effort to divine power. It teaches you that the strength you've been looking for doesn't come from being in control. It comes from trusting the one who already is. It comes from leaning into a presence that doesn't abandon you in your lowest hour, a presence that doesn't grow tired when you have nothing left to give. This isn't about becoming numb. It's not about pretending the pain didn't happen. It's about discovering that even in your most broken moments, you were never truly alone. Even in the place where others walked away, something greater stepped in, not to erase the pain, but to use it, to forge resilience, to awaken depth, to call forth a version of you that could only be born through fire. You begin to understand that what felt like the end was really the beginning of becoming. The pain that brought you to your knees also brought you closer to the truth that your strength was never meant to come from within you alone. It was always meant to flow through you from a source greater than you. And so, pain, as brutal as it may be, becomes sacred, not because it's good in itself, but because of where it leads you. It leads you to the arms of the one who does not change, who does not leave, who does not require you to earn his presence. They left, yes, they did, and it hurt more than words can fully express. But in the space they left behind, strength was waiting, not the kind that shouts, but the kind that carries, not the kind that demands, but the kind that endures. And it all began with the pain you never wanted but now understand. Divine presence reorders identity when someone walks out of your life. They don't just leave you with silence, they often leave you with questions. Questions that echo louder in the absence. Was I not enough? Was I too much? Did they ever truly see me? Their departure doesn't just take away their presence, it disrupts your sense of who you are. You begin to question your value, not because you have none, but because someone failed to recognize it. That's what pain often does. It distorts the mirror. You stop seeing yourself clearly. Instead, you start to define yourself by how others have treated you. Their rejection becomes your reflection. And over time you begin to wear labels that were never meant to belong to you: unworthy, forgotten, unwanted, broken. But what if the moment they left wasn't the moment you were abandoned, but the moment you were reintroduced to who you truly are? Because when God enters, He does more than comfort the wound. He speaks to your identity. He begins to confront every false label you've picked up. He doesn't speak to the version of you that's been shaped by trauma or loss. He speaks to the one He created before the pain ever began. You see, when we try to define ourselves through the eyes of people, we are constantly shifting. If they approve, we feel seen. If they distance themselves, we feel invisible. But that's not identity, that's dependency. And dependency built on human inconsistency is never stable. The presence of God is different. He doesn't define you by what you've done or what others failed to see. He defines you by design, by purpose. He speaks not to the surface, but to the soul. And when you begin to hear His voice over the noise of your past, something in you starts to change. You begin to walk differently, not with arrogance, but with awareness, the awareness that your worth isn't attached to someone's ability to stay, that your value wasn't created by others, so it can't be destroyed by them either. You were not made by their hands, so you are not undone by their absence. And slowly, the lies begin to fall away. You no longer believe you are too much. You realize you were just too deep for shallow connection. You no longer believe you are unworthy. You recognize that your worth was never based on who accepted or rejected you. It was established long before any of them came into your life. This reordering of identity is not always dramatic. It's not about external changes or loud declarations. It's subtle, quiet, powerful. It happens when you stop chasing after people who misunderstand you and start listening to the one who knows you completely. There's a healing that happens not in trying to prove yourself, but in finally resting in who you are, not who they said you were, but who you've always been beneath the pain, loved, chosen, whole. And when you begin to see yourself through divine eyes, you also start to see others differently. You stop holding on to those who were never meant to stay. You stop begging for what was never meant to be permanent, and you start walking in alignment with what is true. They may have left, and yes, their absence left a mark, but it also cleared the space for something greater, the kind of presence that doesn't come and go with emotion or seasons. A presence that stays, a presence that restores, a presence that speaks life into places that were silent for too long. And in that presence, you don't just find peace, you find yourself. The departure was part of the design. We often look at loss as something that interrupts our lives. It feels like a break in the story, an unexpected twist that takes us off course. When someone we trusted walks away, especially without explanation, we tend to see it as a detour, something that wasn't supposed to happen, something we have to recover from in order to get back on track. But what if their departure wasn't a disruption of the plan? What if it was part of the plan all along? It's a difficult truth to accept, especially when the pain is still fresh. We don't want to believe that the heartbreak we went through could have purpose. It's more comforting to see it as random, as unfair, or as something we just need to forget. But time has a way of bringing clarity, and with it, a realization that perhaps what felt like rejection was actually redirection. Sometimes, people have to leave so that space can be created, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. When someone exits your life, they often take more than just their presence. They take the noise, the expectations, the pressure to be someone you're not in order to keep them close. And when that noise clears, you're finally able to hear something deeper, something more enduring, something divine. There are certain lessons you can't learn when you're surrounded by comfort. There are dimensions of growth that only come through release. And while it may have felt like everything was falling apart when they left, in reality, something deeper was being built beneath the surface. You just couldn't see it at the time. When God allows someone to walk away, it's not because you aren't worth staying for. It's often because their part in your story has come to an end. Holding on longer than necessary doesn't strengthen a connection, it delays the arrival of what's meant for you next. And sometimes, letting go is the most faithful thing you can do. We grow up thinking that every meaningful relationship has to last forever. But not all connections are designed to be permanent. Some people enter our lives as teachers, some come as mirrors, others come as catalysts, and once their role is complete, life moves them out of our path not to punish us, but to protect us, to move us forward. It takes wisdom to see the design in the departure. It takes maturity to stop chasing what is no longer aligned. And it takes trust, deep, soul-level trust, to believe that what is meant for you will never require you to shrink, beg, or suffer endlessly just to hold on. What walked away was never meant to define your future. It was meant to refine your path. And in hindsight, you begin to see the evidence, the way you found clarity in the chaos, the strength you didn't know you had, the moments of divine alignment that followed once you finally let go. The pain was real, the grief was valid, but it wasn't wasted, because in their leaving you learned how to stand. In their absence you discovered presence not theirs, but the divine one that doesn't leave when life gets hard. And in that sacred encounter, you found what many spend their whole lives searching for: peace that doesn't depend on people, purpose that doesn't shift with circumstances, and love that isn't fragile or conditional. So, no, their departure wasn't a mistake. It was a turning point. It was the moment life stopped being about holding on and started being about rising up. Not in spite of the loss, but because of it.